Alright, so before I even start, Scream is probably my favorite film franchise of all time. I absolutely loved the original trilogy when I was growing up, and when Scream 4 came out, I was pleasantly surprised that they actually seemed to be properly breathing new life into the series instead of doing a cash grab, low effort reboot. When Wes Craven died, my initial reaction was that I wanted them to stop making more movies. I just didn't think that they would be able to keep things feeling the same and it would seem inauthentic without him behind the wheel. So when Scream 5 came out, I was obviously very skeptical, and honestly it did feel different. There was a couple things I wasn't totally on board with, but overall they did mostly pull it off. It was definitely my least favorite Scream movie up to that point, but I did like it, so that was a huge relief. So with Scream 6 coming out, once again I wasn't expecting the world here without Wes Craven involved, but I didn't have that much skepticism anymore, and I was confident that I was probably going to at the very least get a pretty fun slasher movie, and honestly it completely exceeded my expectations. I definitely think Scream 6 is better than Scream 5 was. It feels more settled into its identity as essentially being a new, separate, but not totally disconnected trilogy of movies. I actually really like that they didn't bring Sydney back into this movie because at this point it's really not necessary and it lets the story of the franchise move on in a different direction with its own identity. I did like that they brought back Gale and Kirby though, because they aren't really main characters here that take any focus away from the new group, but them being in a few scenes is enough to still remind you that this is a continuation and not a reboot. There are definitely a couple of moments that borderline go overboard with the fan service or trying to recreate something from the past movies. The main one that stood out to me was with the character of Mindy. I like that they have like the lore of Randy being her uncle and everything, but that doesn't mean that she has to be the Randy of the group necessarily, you know? Like their personalities are completely different and everything, yet sometimes they try to have her do these like unhinged Randy movie rules type of rants and it just doesn't quite feel right, a little forced. Because she doesn't feel anything like Randy for the majority of the movie and then they just try to like turn her into Randy for one scene and then have her go back to normal. That's seriously like borderline the only gripe I have with this movie though. Scream 6 was a seriously good time. The second half of this movie especially kicks ass. It really builds as it gets toward the end. The sequence on the subway train particularly is phenomenal with the way that they build tension in that scene. There's some pretty brutal kills in this movie too, definitely a couple standouts for the series as a whole. Overall, I just genuinely had a great time with Scream 6. It definitely succeeds in building its own identity while still respecting the original material, which you honestly don't see too often these days. There's a couple spoilers I want to get into, so before I get to that, I'll just summarize by saying I thought Scream 6 was an amazing slasher, and if you found any enjoyment in the fifth, you definitely don't want to miss this one because it's pretty much better in every way in my opinion. Anyway, yeah, if you've already seen the movie and you want to hear some spoiler discussion, here we go, fair warning. Thank God they didn't kill off Gale Weathers, man. I was seriously concerned for a bit there. It just would have felt incredibly cheap to me after already killing off Dewey in the previous movie. I get the feeling we may still have seen the last of her in the franchise, at least on screen. Was sorta hoping for one last hospital visit scene at the end or something. But even if they just write her out of the series like they did with Sydney, I'm totally fine with that. As far as the killers go, I thought they did a great job once again, because even on the 6th movie in the series, I wasn't able to figure out who the killers were until the very end. Having it be a team of 3 really provided a lot of opportunities for the audience to suspect one person and then seemingly have them be cleared, only to do more suspicious shit later on and keep everyone guessing. Having it be the family of the killer from the previous movie was like arguably a bit overly close to what they did with Scream 2, but with how much this movie was clearly drawing off Scream 2 with the college setting and everything, I've gotta assume they did that on purpose. Also thought it was cool how in the opening sequence they mixed it up a bit this time where you actually see Ghostface have his identity revealed immediately after the first kill, and then he gets killed himself by the movie's actual Ghostface. Lastly, I do think they should have let Chad or Mindy actually die in this movie. My vote would be for Chad because he got stabbed like 10 times in what I thought was one of the more brutal kills in the movie, only to have him show up Dewey style on a gurney at the end. Mindy's one stab wound just seemed a lot more survivable. I feel like if they had committed to one of them actually dying, it would have felt totally justified and added some weight to the events moving into the next movie. Like in Scream 2, we had Randy die and it really helped maintain that feeling of like, oh shit, no one in the cast is safe, even the fan favorites. And I did feel that way watching Scream 6 initially, but they sort of diminished that in the end. so hopefully they're planning at least one surprising death for Scream 7. Overall, I have to say I thought Scream 6 was amazing. I haven't seen a slasher this entertaining in forever, and it definitely makes me feel pretty optimistic heading into the next movie, which I don't think has been announced yet or anything, but should be a sure thing. Also, one last note, just want to give some credit to whoever did the posters for this movie, in particular the subway station map themed one. I feel like in general movie posters have been pretty uninspired lately, but they did a great job with these. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got. Let me know in the comments where this one ranked for you in the series, and if you got a sec to like and subscribe, it's appreciated. See ya.